Hello, everybody. We're live. I have no idea how many of you are out there, although I'm sure everyone's at home watching their YouTube, watching the weather. Jason and I were just discussing this. This is Jason Oracle,
Well,
and Jason's a little bit of a different sort of person for me to interview. Normally, my standards are you have to have a YouTube channel, but I booked Jason and he sounded delightful, and so I said, okay, screw that. We're going to do it without that. So, but
thank
Jason,
you.
if you look in the information that's set up below, it tells you how to reach Jason. He does readings. You can set up phone readings, and you do psychic fairs. And you're in the New York area, right?
Right. I'm in the New York area, but I can do telephone readings. I have a lot of clients all over the world, and it's just convenient for everybody. But if you're in the New York area, I can definitely do in person as well.
Okay, good. Well, that's fun. So, like I said, I think he's not in the in between space because I think if you really wanted to be on YouTube, you'd be on there by now. But I think he reads like I used to read. I used to read for real people that I knew that were set up one on ones, and I didn't do big group things and stuff except for psychic fairs and stuff. Hello, Spacey Angel, Kathy G, Mimi Nee is always here. And so what we're going to do is do the psychic questions, and then maybe we'll chit chat with Jason a little bit afterwards. Okay, here we go. First question: when did you first realize you might have psychic abilities?
I was very, very young. I had two different experiences. One was a little bit darker, one was a little bit better. The first, I think I'll go with the lighter experience, was that the neighbors took me to the horse races, and I was about 8, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And they asked me, my parents gave me like some money, and they said, go, some gambling money, some betting money. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I looked at the horses, the list of the horses that were on the racetrack, and then all of a sudden everything went blurry except for this one name of a horse. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I want that horse. I want that horse because that was clear as anything. And so I gave them the money, the neighbors the money, but they ended up, because the odds for that horse to win were so low, they didn't bet on that horse. And so, and what ended up happening was that horse actually did win. So, I mean, but that was the first impression that I got from that I could be psychic, that I had some kind of gift.
Good,
And then
good training if you're a reader because you tell people lots of things and they go, "Oh, no, that can't be right. I'm going to do the other
exactly,
thing."
a lot of that, but then all of a sudden it comes true, or it happens. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely. And then the second one was just a dream that I had around 9 or 10. A family member, very sweet, very kind, very gentle, 5 years younger than I was. I was 12. I'm sorry, I was 12. This family member was about 8, and I had this dream that this family member was attacked by demons and eaten up. And the screams that I heard from the family member were so just horrifying. And what ended up happening is that this person um, ended up having a lot of complications, ended up being psychotic, ended up, really, really having a tough time of it. But I do feel like there was some kind of spiritual element to that transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I picked up on it. I somehow connected to it and I picked up on it. So that was the second kind of like really deep, profound experience that I had, that I
Mm-hmm.
was that made me aware that I had something, a little bit different than other people did.
Okay. So yeah, I when you're young and nobody's around you saying that's not crazy,
Hmm.
that's hard stuff to put up with, and
Right.
it's hard to see the long. It's easier for us to look back and see the long term consequences. It's kind of how we learn. It's sort of our
Right.
primer.
Yeah.
Okay. What's this? What's your single aha moment as an adult, and how did you build off that?
You mean like in terms of like psychic experience, or okay, in terms of like working with clients, or a personal?
Well, personal one, if you have something you said, I can do this, and this is what I'm sort of stuck with.
I think that, I think that when I started pulling cards and I started doing it for people and people resonated with the readings. So, and people started really asking me for more readings. And then what would happen is that they would also tell friends, and then friends of friends would start coming to me asking for readings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a realization that, okay, maybe I have something here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something here that's of value to people that I can contribute and that I can serve. So it's always about how do I serve humanity? And that question was answered through the cards, I think.
We already did my next question. You already answered it because you're a psychic. It's did you have unusual experiences as a child? And then how did people around you react when you began to share your experiences, or did you share your experiences?
Carefully when I was younger. I never told anyone about the dream, that dream about that family member. I kept that to myself. And when I realized it was coming true, I was like a little bit afraid. So I never told anybody about that. But then as I kind of became more comfortable over the years, and I would start talking to people about it. You just have to be very careful and very judicious about who you talk to. There's some people that are open, that really are interested, but then there are others that, it's just too woo-woo for them. It's outside of the box, and they're just completely uncomfortable. So it's just sort of like determining, the audience and trying to figure out who really will resonate with it and who's not interested. So that's what's that?
Learning how to play the room.
Exactly.
Did you seek training when you began to explore your work?
I did it. I didn't seek training, but during the beginning, I think that I just worked with the cards and I just did the experience of it. And I just read for everybody that I could or that wanted to. Later on, I did seek training in terms of more enhancing my shamanic gifts, my ability to empathy, my ability for exploring Akashic records, my ability to do remote viewing. Like there was other things that I got training for that I saw it, but initially for the tarot, for that work, no, it was just personal experience that I did.
We know you work with cards. What other tools might you work with when you're doing your readings?
Right. So runes are a big part of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that I really have a lot of fun with. I enjoy doing. So the runes are if no one knows, or if some people don't know, runes are just these Nordic divination tools, and they have symbols on 24 tiles. And basically you have like traditionally like a black bag, and all these tiles are in there, and then you sort of dip your finger into the bag, and then you pull out these tiles, and there you get the answer to your question, whatever it is: love, career, money, connection to spirit, whatever. So it's a really great tool. And sometimes what you can do is you can take a handful of these tiles, throw them onto a table, and then all of a sudden look at all the tiles that are face up. So all the ones that are face down, you pull away to the side because they don't have many messages for you. But the tiles that are face up, you sort of read those and you kind of interpret what the message is for that. That's like a general reading for the runes, but that's the other tool. And Lenormand and oracle cards as well. And usually I close a reading with an oracle card, which a lot of people do. I think you do that too, Nancy Jean.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah. But that's but those are the traditional ones that I use.
Mostly, I do that. I do it to kind of clarify things for clients. But the other reason I do it is for me is I see if the pattern's there, and it's amazing how much I see the pattern of what I've been reading is summed up in the oracle card.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so it's kind of like one word: trust, or helpful people, or things will get better, or another one is like, it's up to you, right? So all these themes can be rolled up in a general reading.
Right, and sometimes when you're reading an oracle card for someone, I used to, when COVID hit and people would finally go and have a party at a friend's house, and they wanted a reader. Well, I wasn't coming out because the first time I did, I got COVID. So I got Omicron, which was sort of baby COVID. But anyway, I read this one woman's party, and there were like 8 women. They were already working together, so they figured we're already breathing on each other, so why not? And they had a party, and then at the end, for each one of them, I read the Power of Surrender cards, which were put together by a therapist, and they're really interesting cards. And I picked that deck up. I just said, okay, I was one I'm going to use for my oracles. And I had 2 of the women come back to me later and said, I don't think you understood what you said to me that night. And I said, oh, that would be any night, honey. But yeah, because you have to take it and work with it. But they both told me that what I saw in that card, all of a sudden, it flashed in their brain what I'd been talking about, which they hadn't fully understood. But when they heard it under what they needed to surrender to get to the next point with something, it became very clear. And for go on.
No, I was just going to say, a lot of times what happens is that messages are very vague or unclear, like in the reading, like they can't put that piece together at that moment. But then all of a sudden, like 2 days later, it hits. It's like, oh, that's what that means, And so sort of like there's a delayed effect to a reading. So, people just need to have patience with the messages, because sometimes it does take a little bit of time to kind of, that puzzle piece to kind of like complete.
Well, like to shuffle it all around in their brain too, because it's kind of like a dream you're walking into. It takes a while for us to figure our dreams out too. Did you have any mentors or teachers you particularly attached to?
I do, Irma, I'm in New York, so there is a robust shamanic community in New York City. And there's one, her name is Irma Star Spirit. So a lot of the psychic development courses for my shamanism, the gifts, enhancing those, were through her. And she utilized crystals, she utilized meditation, she utilized a lot of different techniques and to be able to tap into that. But that was one that I did for that. But for tarot, it's a lot of books, a lot of reading, and then a lot of experience.
Yeah, can't read a book about tarot. You got to read the cards.
Right, exactly.
I used to tell my students, carry your book with you. If it makes you feel more secure, carry your little cheat sheet.
Right, exactly.
People, I'm a baby tarot reader.
Yeah, but also it's like it's a language all its own. And, let me give you an example, because this, the Wheel of Fortune, right? I got this in a reading, and the Wheel of Fortune, and then crossed it is the 8 of Cups, right? So the 8 of Cups. And sometimes it can be very profound and complex, like there's all sorts of meanings and layers to it. But sometimes the cards are very literal. The Wheel of Fortune over the 8 of Cups, this woman just took a job as an Uber driver, and she had a night shift, so the Wheel of Fortune is like the steering wheel, and the 8 of Cups is at night, just kind of like moving at night, so it's kind of getting the lingo, getting the language, and trying to get connected to the message.
And how did you learn the difference between your own psychic impression and your imagination?
A lot of times those things are connected together. I feel like, that's really interesting, because I feel like the way I would interpret that is like they're one and the same almost, because, you are tapping into something ephemeral and something, you can't really, it's not like clay or earth, it's something like air, and it sort of, you have to do, well, I think that what it comes down to is discernment, right? So it's like, for me, it's like discerning the different kind of messages that are coming through and figuring out which one would really serve the client and which one doesn't really serve. So that's sort of how I filter out what messages to kind of like take a look and to apply to a reading. So, it really is this something that serves the client? Is this message something that's helpful? Is this message that is flowing through me in a way that is inspired, in a way that is connecting to somebody? So that's sort of, that's how I figure those two pieces out.
Yeah, good. That's and let's see. Are there moments when you've really doubted yourself? And then how did you walk through that?
I think that, I think that this craft, or this work, it's there are points where you do doubt because people will shake their head, or sometimes people will be like, no, that doesn't resonate, or no, this is not what I'm feeling. But then in my experience, a lot of times you get confirmation of your work later on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we talked about earlier, sometimes these things don't click until later on. You're walking through a dream, and a lot of things people are trying to kind of figure out during your reading are not making sense, but then they do later on. So for me, it's just the doubt is like, okay, sometimes, they can't figure out what the message is, or they can't put it into their world until later on. And then it's like, oh, Jason, you were right, this happened. Or the people that you saw in my reading, I didn't know who you were talking about, but they kind of like were introduced into my life later on, or into my work. So a lot of times the feedback was what helped me gain my confidence later on. So that's sort of like how I feel
Do
about
you
that.
know who Radley Valentine is? He designs tarot
Yes,
cards.
yes, he designs all sorts of oracle cards. Yeah.
Right, right, and tarot cards. I went to two different things he did, and I ended up sitting and talking with him. And he had read for me at one, and I got back a hold of him, and I said, "All that happened, what you saw." And he said, people never come back to me and tell me if I'm right or not.
Mm,
And I was utterly amazed because that's the only way that I know, that we know, that where we're touching things. So,
right. It's the feedback. It's so important. And,
yeah,
I
it
have,
may be that he's so high up the mountain that nobody wants to go tell him.
right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But, I mean, I think for any reader, it's all feedback is just really crucial. It's like, it's not just the message, but how you tell the message. And, there's all sorts of layers to a reading that are really complex and nuanced. But feedback is great. It's like, okay, I can do that better.
Okay. If people are hearing some feedback, it's not on our end. When we came in, I could hear Jay, then I couldn't hear Jay, then he got his audio back up, but I think it's the weather outside. Guys, it's not doing favors to our audio. Um, how do you handle skepticism from yourself and from others? Is that the question? I just know that's not the question.
No, that's a new question. Well, actually, I don't think you asked me that, but skepticism. Everyone has an opinion about things. Everyone has a point of view, and it's formed through experiences. It's formed through their own research and their own ideas. And you just have to accept that some people are going to be skeptical. You're going to have to accept that some people. But you know what? If you're sitting at my table, there's a little piece of you that is open.
That put your butt there. Yes, there's some past life that said this worked for us before.
Right, exactly.
Okay, have you gone through weak and strong phases, and could you tie anything to that?
Uh, I think that everything is, growth, and I do feel like, I do feel like there are phases that ups and downs, and things, like in anything, but I do feel like if well, for me, if I focus on the idea of just serving and how can I, contribute and give this person everything that they need, that usually guides me back. That usually guides me back. So the ups and downs would be about self-criticism. It would be about self-doubt. It would be about having that shadow looming over whatever work that I'm doing at that moment. But if I pivot and I say that it's not about me, this is about client, this is about who I'm working with. I usually refocus myself and get myself through, any kind of doubts or periods.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of what you do with anything in your life. Like you try a recipe and screw it up. I'll try it again.
Right, exactly.
Okay, how do you protect your energy?
I love this question. As I have a whole, theory about psychic people and people who are empathic and people who are sensitive. We are very, I do feel like there's a lot of stuff out there in the ethers, not even physical, but just in the ethers, the things that we don't see, things that view, that love this light, that love feeding off of it, and dark energies, things like that. And that can be very exhausting to somebody who is a healer. Protection crystals are really, really amazing in order to kind of like protect you. For me, there's a Radorite pendant that I stick with, completely protects my aura from attack at night. So that's where I think that we're most vulnerable, is like in sleep. So about 3 in the morning or whatever, it's like can get attacked. Can be, that's when we're kind of like checked out. So having something like a pendant or something like some crystal that we hold on to and keep next to our skin, very protective, very, very protective. In terms of just sort of working with darker energies and things like that, like if a person comes in who has dark energy, who's just kind of like covered with it, you do a little bit of like, the meditation, the light meditation, where you just kind of like shroud yourself in white light, and it comes through the crown and just kind of like, goes all over your auric body. So that's two things that I do to protect myself.
Okay. Do you have a go-to ritual if you really think you really need to do something, like right now?
Well, I have the rituals, lighting a candle. Because the runes, I do believe in the sigil magic. So there is a candle that I have that is covered in protective sigils, and it's a white candle, and so that is something that I use, and I light it up for a reading, so in case that I need to do that. So it's very, very protective. So that's another way that I kind of use magic and runes and sigils to protect me.
Okay. Before we get off the topic of runes completely, in one of the past lives I've been taken into, I was a seer for Vikings.
Oh, wow.
I was their shaman sort of person. And I was tall, and I wore, my cat has long ago forgiven me for this, but she had cat fur gloves and stuff. Anyway, the thing is, if you threw the runes and told the Vikings, yeah, go raid that place, you'll have a good time, they threw you in the boat with them, which I think is the part most people leave out.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So is that where you met your end in that lifetime?
No, we won, so I was okay. But, that was something that, sitting from this perspective, looking back at the time, of course, at the time I would have known, if you tell them to do something, you get to go do it too, a boy or a girl. And, they have found women's bones among Vikings, and they thought, oh, it was a fluke or something. But no, there were women warriors in the Vikings. But I love runes. I don't read them well, but I enjoy playing with them. And I enjoy the sensibility of how runes are read. They're read connecting the different symbols together, and they're not read. You can get this would be a better direction than that, but you can't get a real yes, no out of a rune. They don't like yes, no.
Right. Yeah. They lean towards, kind of like, I would say that the ice, there's a rune. It looks like an eye. That's like something is frozen, that something's not moving, something is completely static. So that would be something that I would, if someone is thinking about making a move or doing something and that comes up, it's like, hold on, you need to kind of be patient and wait, because it feels like there's either the timing issue or some obstacle happening.
Right. Yeah, I think runes are fascinating. Anyway, do you think your psychic abilities are innate, or can anyone develop them?
I think that everyone has psychic abilities. I think everyone, is connected, in some way. Now, it's just like, anyone who has but the talent can range, right? So you can be born with more talent than maybe other people are. And that could be because you've had past life experiences where you lived lifetimes, honing this craft. You lived lifetimes, studying, you lived lifetimes practicing. And sometimes all of that stuff just kind of appears and comes to the, and is at your disposal. You don't have to work at it as hard as other people do. So I do believe that there's, everyone has something, but the way that the way the skill or the talent lies is different. There's a big spectrum.
Yes, I agree. And some people, they see it and they won't look at it.
Right. They don't. They're afraid of it. They look away. And that's something. That's for me. That's a waste. You're throwing something very special away.
Well, then they'll get to do it again. I mean,
yeah, right.
Well, avoid it now. It's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
How has this work changed your worldview on life and death?
We don't ever die, but I don't believe in death. Not that, because of the past lives that I remember and just coming back around, but you do get a different perspective on how to live, right? So, and just as sort of like everything you do, as it just impacts, it ripples, there's a ripple. And so you just kind of are more aware of the ripples that you make in this life. And so that's kind of like that's the gift I think that this sort of awareness gives you. Is like, okay, you're more careful, you're more gentle, you're more compassionate, you're more empathic, and it's just sort of because you've seen the scope of things through these other lifetimes and through these experiences, you understand the impact. So it just makes you much more thoughtful in your life, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, and what you were then, you are not now. I mean, that's the whole thing
Right.
of going through it. Okay, what's one of the most powerful readings you've ever done, without revealing too much about somebody, but one that struck you and has stuck with you?
I do. Let me think here. Because there's been quite a few. I'm trying to pick, which one would really.
You could do one or two. We've got time.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I do feel like there's one client who was I mean, I get a lot of relationship stuff. Like a lot of people come to me for relationships, but I do feel like it's the readings that I did was very very impactful to them because they were asking about. I think you're going to ask me this next. Eventually, it's come along, but it's about how to answer, give bad news. But for this one, it's like being very compassionate and just saying this is kind of like what I see. The relationship doesn't feel like it's flowing the way that you want it to. Are some things that needs to be explored. There's some secrets that have to come up to the surface, and like and I feel like that it's one of those things like when you have a partner who keeps a lot of secrets, who holds on to a lot of things, it's sort of like the cards really kind of like want to tell you that this needs to be addressed. You can't keep on going with a relationship that people are withholding things from you, not sharing. So that's really really important. So I think that the impact of that opened this person's eyes to make them make choices within their relationship to take back their power, because a lot of times what happens is like if you're closing your eyes, you're giving away your power. You're not addressing it. You're not not doing that. So it allowed them to own their power in the relationship and to be able to kind of address and acknowledge the issues that were happening. So that's one of those things. And another one was just sort of oh yeah, this person was kind of like wanted to get a general reading, and I kept getting Wheel of Fortune and 10 of Pentacles and 9 of Pentacles and things like that. And I was like, there's a lot of money. She's like, no, that's not me. I'm like, I'm saying, this is kind of like every card is a money card here, and you got a lot of good
Mhm.
energy coming through. And I was like, you need to, I encourage you to, I think, you need to kind of like play the lottery. You need to go to the casino. There's something here that is
Mhm.
really, this is the time to do it. So this person ended up taking my advice, and they did end up winning a lot of money. They went to the casino and they ended up winning a lot of money. But it was the cards were just saying, this is a great time. You need to go ahead and do it. So that was one way that that was a second way that this was impacted that person. You know. So
Yes.
that too, yeah.
You reminded me of years and years ago, I read for this woman who was a hairdresser. We had this one salon and they all came in. And I read this woman and I said, "You're going to inherit money." And she said, "No, girl. Mm-mm,
Hmm.
mm-mm. Dirt farmer family, East Texas. No, nobody in my family has. I have more money than any of them." And I
Hmm.
said, "I just really see you getting money." Well, she walked around the store that I was working in it for a while, and she came back and she goes, "I can't get over what you're saying, but I just don't see where it would come from." And I told her if she wrote out 100 names, that the person that's sending her the money would not be a name she knew,
Mm.
that she would recognize. So she goes away. She comes back 3 weeks later and she says, "You were right." And I said, "Oh, good. Please tell me." She and her daughter, when her daughter was in high school, she and her daughter had taken a girl who'd been thrown out by her family.
Oh.
And they brought the girl in their home. And it ended up the parents had never helped the kid get a social security card, never helped her. So this woman helped her get a social security card, taught her how to apply for jobs, taught her how to learn how to work. And she lived with them till she finished her high school diploma, even though they took some heat from the family for keeping her. And
Mm.
like she said, there was nothing wrong with this child. But
Mm.
anyway, they kissed her on the cheek and the girl disappeared into the mist. And now the woman's daughter was about 40 something. Anyway, this dear sweet child had gone off and made herself a millionaire somehow.
Wow.
And I mean, like lots and lots of money. And so these lawyers approached her and they said, "Are you this person? Where did you live at this?" Is they verified who she was. And the woman was leaving the daughter and the mother a sizable sum of money
Mm.
when she died because she said, "Without those people, I never would have gotten to here."
Wow. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
why
that's amazing.
Mhm.
I said that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
And it's always also shows you how you never know when you do something good that's going to come back and help you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again that ripple effect, right? It's like how we
Hmm.
treat it, and just kind of like it doesn't necessarily have to be immediate, but you could
And
you
when we
see
never know, yeah, we just never know. So, and I thought, well, she said, "You were so sure about it." And I said, "Because it was there. What can I say?"
yeah, you definitely said that.
When you get to a complex or sensitive subject, how do you adapt?
So this is kind of fun because if someone is, has, if I see something that is difficult, a message that is sort of more complex. First of all, I just want to say, most of the time they understand. Like,
Hmm.
but they immediately get what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Something that is like completely out of the blue to them. This like it's like wow, you get the three of swords, the tower, and you get the it's like okay, yeah, there's like there was there's some complications there, so they're definitely aware of it. So a lot of times I find now this is interesting that when I am completely honest and I say, this is what I see, they're like, yeah, they agree. They don't push back. They kind of like are, they kind of like really, they understand and they appreciate the honesty. They do appreciate the honesty. And I think that's most important is just to kind of like be straightforward and just do
Hmm.
that. I am warning them of something. You don't ever want to instill fear, right? You don't want because fear is something that is destabilizing. Fear is something that is actually disempowering. So you
Hmm.
don't. My goal isn't to like instill fear. If I saw someone get run over by a bus, it's like girl, buses are not your friend. Just be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, just be aware there's something here about motor vehicles or whatever. So it's just like a way of just sort of like addressing things, but also not putting a fear into it. And also you don't want to create a self-fulfilling self-fulfilling what is that word, destiny, right? Prophecy, exactly. You don't want to create that. So you just want to be tiptoe around the fear. You don't want to push that button, but you do want to address it, whatever it is that comes through the reading.
Good. Okay. And what advice would you give someone who's starting to explore their gifts?
I think it's really exciting. That's an amazing time to be able to, start and begin that journey. I think that, the sky's the limit. You have the Buddhist beginner's mind, so there's no limits to what, can happen. And you just kind of go in and you just keep, stay open and keep practicing and, having conversations with interesting people, reading books that really kind of, support whatever journey that you're going on. Just keep at it, just keep doing it. And there's two pieces to it. And I always feel like the first piece is practice, is doing it. But the second piece to really enhance your gifts is trusting. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about trusting your gift, because the more you trust your gift, the more it grows. The stronger it gets. The whispers become very distinct and more clear. So it just is sort of that growth. So it's about trusting yourself and trusting your gift, and that's really what the goal should be about: trusting yourself in this journey.
Yeah. Well, it's like being a singer. When you learn the range of your voice, and that's what you do when you practice all the different skills. You learn the range of your voice and what you feel comfortable singing. And I'm going to do rap. I'm going to do opera. I'm going to do both.
Right.
Whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it could be very beautiful.
Yes. Any daily exercises you recommend?
For psychic development per se?
No, that can be for anything.
Okay. Well, I do have, a yoga practice, which is really great for grounding. So I think that's, because your body, your mind, your spirit, it's all connected, So I do feel like, if you have a strong body, if you engage in, and if you have a practice, if it's even Tai Chi or whatever, just having that is very important. Stimulating your mind with some really engaging, material that, that you really are passionate about. It could be about art. It could be about sports. It could be about, whatever it is, stimulating your mind and making sure that's always engaged. And spirit, always kind of being able to connect and going and grounding and coming back to yourself. So, just as, the trifecta, right? And I think that as long as you address and do exercises for those three pieces, I think that, you're going to have a much more balanced and much more magical life.
Mm-hmm. How can someone find a trustworthy psychic community or mentor? What would be sort of either your red flags or what you feel draws you in?
Yeah, I do feel like the red flags for as if they're just sort of if they're coming in with the reading with a lot of ego. Now, this is one of those things because I've worked with, I've been at shops, crystal shops, I've read all over the place and things like that. There are some psychics who just kind of come in with a lot of ego into the reading. So it's not about the client, it's about themselves. So it's a lot about talking about themselves, or somehow they find a way of twisting that reading to themselves. It's like, so it's like, oh, it's just kind of like they relate their own stories, they relate their own experiences, but it's like not really giving anything to the client. So just be careful about that. And usually younger or more novice practitioners that do that, the more experienced ones are the ones that really kind of create and make the reading about you and are really concerned about your well-being and about you. So that's sort of like that's important. And sort of when you're in a reading from a client perspective, Just be open-minded, listen to the messages, and sometimes if the messages don't resonate, allow a couple of days for those things to kind of come and hit, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like process whatever it is that message is. Um, in terms of psychic community, it depends. If you're psychic, if you're empathic, and you're looking for a community like that, I would just say look up, I'll go online and look up communities that are practicing whatever it is that you are interested in. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
interested in tarot card readings, look up any kind of tarot groups. If you're looking up, if you're interested in shamanism, look up any kind of shamanic groups and it doesn't even have to be now with technology. This is amazing. It's like it doesn't have to even be local. There's a shaman that I work with who's in Oregon, so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
she's amazing, so her name's Christina Pratt, and she has like this whole, library of
Mm-hmm.
lectures, that you can listen to. So, go online and take a look at it, and also, go to your metaphysical shops, having conversations with people at the shops, just starting things, really into astrology, find an astrology group, So it's the technology and the resources are out there. You just need to kind of like be proactive and search them out.
Yeah, looking around. Okay, and here's the biggest. Okay, here's the last question. It's a little bitty one. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your psychic journey?
We are always growing, like never stop, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to keep ourselves, open and not close ourselves off. I think that a lot of times, as we get older, we get set in our ways and we start sort of seeing things, kind of in a myopic way, like there's only one way. And I think that that's not the healthiest thing. I think you need to be open-minded, and I think you need to be able to try different things. And I think it's, I didn't pick up the runes until I was like 45,
Mm-hmm.
been doing the tarot since my 20s. So,
Right.
it's just always picking up and experimenting and playing with things and doing and being and having a playful spirit. I think that's super important. Is being very, very playful with yourself and with life, and I think that's having that child energy is really, really amazing.
It is. It's really important. Well, do you
Mm.
have anything else you'd like to say about your practice or what you do, Jay, to
Yeah.
introduce these folks?
Yeah, sure. I do Akashic records. I'm rooted in shamanism, so there's a lot of that piece that I do through my readings. So I do connect with other people's energy. A lot of times, what I can, I have an ability to kind of like lift some darkness and heaviness out through the readings. That always is a gift of mine, and I've gotten feedback that people consistently feel very, very like lighter after the reading. They feel
Mm-hmm.
like burden has been lifted, and it doesn't have to be a physical burden. It could just be a spiritual burden that just feels like it's lifted. They feel like they have, and it's always about empowering. So they feel like they have more clarity and more understanding of what they need to do, or more confidence and
Mm-hmm.
more like whatever has weighed them down has been lifted. So that's sort of one of those things that I incorporate within my readings, is just trying to tap into that energy. And that happens naturally. I think as a healer, that's something that I naturally do. So, yeah, so that is something that I do. I think that's a little bit different than the other readers, and I think that's something that I've learned how to do through lifetimes and experiences, and and being a natural empath. That just I connect with energy immediately. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell. I think that's my practice.
Well, very good. It encompasses a great deal, and I'm glad we did get to talk. And I need to give up my prejudice about not having a YouTube channel, but I'm not over it yet. My
Well,
problem,
yeah.
one of my problems is that my people that watch my shows, they're like people that they can see and get a hold of various ways. So, but it's
Right.
all in the description below, guys. Trust me. And I'm trying to think. Oh, I was going to tell you. Do you know who Irving Finkel is?
That is a name I don't know. Mm-mm.
Well, you wouldn't, because he's the guy who decoded Mesopotamian runes. I mean, the Mesopotamian cuneiforms.
Oh,
He looks older than God. If you were going to draw a picture when I was a small white child of what God looked like, it would look like Irving Finkel. And I just happened to be almost snoozing off, just doing stupid things in my living room to try and get ready for bed. And I ended up listening to a lecture he did. And it was amazing because he was talking about how there's this whole set of cuneiform tablets that are full of sort of the shamanistic equivalent of law books. It was how you could practice shamanism in Mesopotamia,
oh
and the
wow.
formulas and the who was a what and what were good critters and what were bad critters. And I was sitting there going, and he said, they're just like lawyers now. I went to this school and learned my craft. And that's so funny because all of our shamans, they train with different people, but it's a much more informal way of doing it. And these guys were out there doing it.
Also shows for me how important that practice was to their culture. I feel like if they had formalized training in institutions, then they really put a lot of weight behind the wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I think that a lot of that respect for shamanism has been put away over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to see, and I feel like we're circling back to that. I think people are being aware that there is more to it. There's a lot more to life than just kind of like the 3D, physical version. That's, much more involved with energy work, much more
Mm-hmm.
involved with telepathy and metaphysical and all the other stuff. And, even though we are rediscovering this is very ancient, old,
Mm-hmm.
wisdom, and that's exciting, I think.
Yeah, I was sitting there kind of laughing at it when, especially, was talking about the rivaling groups and
Yeah.
I've got the answer and you don't. But the fact that he said that when they began to translate these tablets, they realized these are like, this is what you're supposed to do when you walk into this situation. And their shamans, a lot of them were exorcists because they believed there was a lot of evil energy going around the earth, and that it would try to incorporate itself into humanity through humans, oddly enough. And they kind of explained how to use shamans. And I think how people should use shamans is something that's not very clearly understood, especially
I,
in the cultures I grew up in.
well, I think that Native American cultures, indigenous cultures, understood that they had to have like a shaman or a medicine man or something
Mm-hmm.
because there was when you're living very close to nature. I think
Mm-hmm.
that you understand, you're more aware of how connected you are to that and to energies. And I think that it's necessary to have a medicine man or shaman. But the more disconnected you are from nature, I think the less you understand the importance of the role. And I think that it becomes very diminished. I do feel like, from my own perspective, there are things out there that are, that are predatory. I do feel like our shamans are very much important part of combating that negativity, protecting you from it. So
Mm-hmm.
totally agree.
Okay. I thought I was putting it up. I was about to put up your email, your YouTube, your website. I'm sorry. I'll get it right. One of these words will come through. Line. I'm gonna put it up before I miss it up again. Okay.
All right. Okay.
It's in the chat. It's in the chat. Jericho Online. And thank you for coming by today, Jay. And I'm sending and pedaling as fast as I can to get the weather that's sitting on me to go sit on you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I certainly hope that it's not as bad as they think it is.
Oh, just north of me, it really is. We got a dusting of snow and ice, but north of me, it's really,
Oh,
It
really?
started freezing rain at midnight last night.
Oh no. Okay. Well, all right. Well, we'll get through it. We'll figure it out. I'll have to buy some water, and just kind of
Uh,
stock up.
I have to remember this in July and August when it's 112 degrees. I'll remember. Remember when I complained about that?
Right? Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I pray that your grid doesn't go down, Nancy G.
Oh no, we have gas. We have gas stove and a gas fireplace, and we've
Okay.
had the grid go down on us once. And
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
tile floors all on the first floor, so as soon as you get the fireplace going, it heats up the whole downstairs. But for the people who don't have it, I really grieve for them around here.
Right, absolutely. I remember that there was a grid issue. What was it, last winter that happened? I forget. It was like Texas had this grid that
Oh
was.
no, that was 5 years ago. My son was living in a house with two small children, his wife, and the only way they could get water was he made this sleigh, and he and his neighbors would drag it over to a brewery that was near them that had its own generator, and it could purify water, and it was pure. If you brought the gallons to put the water in, that's how they had water for 4 days.
Oh wow.
We live
Oh,
in a first world nation, and I did not raise my poor son to. He was raised in Texas. I was raised in Illinois. I could have walked that, yeah. But he said, "Mom, that was so cold." I said, "Yeah, it was." But yeah, it was. Yeah, and they've doubled our electric bills, and they were supposed to be improving the grid. And our dear sweet senator, this is political, guys. Cover your ears if you don't like politics. Ted Cruz left 2 days ago, so we all knew it was really going to be bad.
Did you go to Mexico? You went to.
I don't think he had the guts to go there, but he went to any place that wasn't here. And there were all kinds of memes among Texans saying, "Go check on his dogs," because last time he took off, he left the dog in the house, and the reporters who were standing outside his house reported him to the SPCA for leaving the dog.
Oh no! Oh
I mean,
yeah.
not only did he leave the state, but he left his poor little dog. I mean, I'm sure more people cared about the dog than the other people in the state, but that's okay. Care about something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The poor dog. Hopefully they'll be taken care of for sure.
No, the dog they surrendered it.
Oh, they did. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a charming man in all sorts of delightful ways. Anyway, well, let's get back to something that's really charming. I'll be on tomorrow with Scott at 10 a.m. doing politics. And I look forward to seeing everybody then. And thank you, Jay, for coming over. And we're going to end the stream now. Goodbye to everybody. Catherine, I'll fix my thing as soon as I can. Bye.
Bye, everybody.